Here we go.
All
We've
right.
started. Uh, so I'm here with my friend and lead singer and songwriter of Slobberbone, the Drams, as well as a solo record that he put out about 10 years ago, Brent Best. Welcome, Brent.
Hello.
Good to
Welcome
see
to
you.
yeah, good to see you. It's been a year at least, right?
Yeah. Last time I think was last July, right? At Lane's concert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So I've known Brent going on 25 years. I think I met him the first time at a show at Club DeVille in 1999, a show that I have often talked about, had a huge uh, impact on me. At times I've said that that show saved my life. I was in a really dark place, went to that show. It was pouring rain. It's
Oh yeah.
probably, I don't know, 50 or 100 people there. Jimmy Smith from the Gourds was there.
He was egging
And
us on, even though we were all in dire, about to be electrocuted.
it was
He egged
pouring. I
us
remember the
on.
water was like this high on the stage.
Yeah. Yeah, my
Um,
pedals were floating, literally.
yeah, yeah,
They were
yeah. And I
sitting.
remember Jimmy threw a bottle that like hit the top and almost hit your drummer. And that
Sounds
was
right.
during, I think, Webb. I think he was playing Webb and like
Yeah.
he forgot the lyrics, so you had to help him out. It's his song. Um, but yeah, that show was a really, I don't know, I guess it's a pivotal moment in my life just with respect to my mental health and music. Um, I was down at Austin, South by Southwest for the first time that year. I've been about almost 10 times total, but and I was just in a really bad place for a variety of reasons. And you put on a show that just ripped me away from, I guess, the darkness I was in. And I remember during Powderfinger, your cover of Neil Young's Powderfinger, I just lost it because I felt something, right? And I hadn't in a while. So I did not plan on opening with that, but that's where it went. So I think you know that story. I think you've heard me tell it before.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so
Powderfinger still has that effect on me, and all its permutations, like what an atomic song, man.
and you guys just nailed it. And I can remember the beat, Look Out, Mama, and the place, just everyone who I was with was like, holy shit.
I mean, I like narrative songs and story songs, but I don't need or necessarily want all the ends tied up, and Neil's the master of that, and you just to inhabit, some sort of character that you might not have even imagined existed, but from like you said, from that first line, you're
Yep.
like you're somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
So
great.
I'm sure I thanked you for that, but since we're doing this interview on
Yeah.
on my channel, thank you again. Uh, I remember going right to the keg when you guys finished, and everybody was just so joyous. And it's probably the first time in a few months that I enjoyed a drink. So power of music, and I've basically stayed in music ever since, um, from a career standpoint and just in terms of my hobbies. So um,
I
for folks
remember
who are,
I remember a night at South by with you in the basement of some luxury hotel that was it American Spirit sponsored.
it's on
Like,
the list, it's on the questions list. Yeah.
oh, okay, I'll let it. It was
No,
a
no, no, we can jump into
still
it. We
amazes
were,
me that existed, in a mostly, non-smoking or town that was going that way, with
yeah,
all
yeah.
the the corporate backing and hubris of South by Southwest. There was
Yeah.
this fancy hotel where the basement you could get free booze and cigarettes all night.
It was the Omni.
The Omni, that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And we ended up there because we were at Stubbs. I can't remember if it was it Steve Earle or Joe Ely, maybe?
It was Steve Earle,
Steve
I think.
Earle. And I think I was with Scott, Scott Clark, obviously. He and I were
Yeah,
just
yeah.
jumping from show to show, and you were sort of hanging out with us in the back. Um, and Scott told us about the Omni room. He's like, there's this room at the Omni that we can party all night, and they're just giving out, like American Spirits is sponsoring it,
Like,
so they're just giving out like
what?
cartons. And I may have this wrong, but as I remember, you said you had to get back to Denton that night because I think you had maybe a show the following night. You had to go somewhere,
I think I had to get back. I had to leave early the next morning,
and
maybe, because I
and then
certainly.
you were like literally stepping about to leave the venue, and I was like, Scott, tell Brent like we told you about this place, and you just said F it. And you're like, I'll go with you guys. And I think we were there till about 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning.
I quit smoking cigarettes 10 years ago, but if I ever get lung cancer, it's probably going to be just from that night, like just free cigarettes.
Yeah, yeah. I remember we were just taking. I remember, and they didn't care. I would like grab a cart, and they're like, "That's cool, take it, take another if you want."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was
that was a
like
fun night. I have no idea what year that
It's
was.
Christmas for heathens.
Yeah, yeah, 2005 maybe. It was South by Southwest. I have no idea what year it was.
Yeah.
Um, so just by way of a little background, Brent has 4 records with Slobberbone. Slobberbone are one of my favorite rock bands, or just bands, period, ever. I've seen them probably 20 times. A lot of those shows down in Austin at South by Southwest. But I've also seen them in New York, saw them at Brownies, saw them at Southpaw, which no longer exists, out in Brooklyn. That was the same night I had my other brother in town, and we saw Sonic Youth and Wilco at
Wow.
Central Park, and then hopped on the subway and got there just in time for you.
Wow.
My brother still talks about it regularly.
I
Um,
like that place. I kind of miss it.
I
We had
loved that place.
Do you remember who we played with that night?
The Damwells, maybe?
The Damwells, yeah. I
That
remember
sound
playing
right?
with them there. We definitely played with them. I remember doing a show with Marah there too, but that might have been the
I was
Drams. I can't.
definitely at that one. This wasn't the Mirage night. I would have remembered that. I think it was the Damwells.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And I can't remember the song, but my younger brother, we were obviously both in great moods. We had just seen 2 great bands in the city, and then we hopped on the subway and made it back in time. Literally, for like, I think it was right when you started. And I can't remember which song he yelled out, but he yelled it out, and you just played it immediately. And the look on his face, he was like, "This is like the greatest day of my life." Um, so that was a great night.
Cool.
But Brent has had 4 records with Slobberbone, one under his second band, the Drams, which I have. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that photo?
Yeah.
That's me and Peter Jesperson.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I share that because I met him when I was working at Apple. We were like doing some music stuff, and he was at New West. Um, and I had a meeting with him, and one, he was the sweetest man. Like,
Absolutely.
and the way he spoke about the Drams record, I don't want to misquote him, but I thought he had said to me, it's the best record I've ever worked on. And I
Oh,
know you're going to say, come on, this is replacements. But he was so over the moon about that record. Like, he just kept talking about it. Um,
he's so sweet.
he's a very sweet guy. I still, like, if I send him a note on Facebook, he always replies, like, right
Oh
away.
yeah.
I wrote him
Yeah.
about all the replacements reissue box sets, and he was so gracious. But if I never shared that with you, man, he loved that record.
I remember him coming to Denton when we were making it. We went out to dinner and then I scrawled some directions on a napkin so he could get out to the Echo Lab, which is out in the country outside of Denton, which is, you kind of got to know where it's at to get to it. And him coming in and it I think at some point after he left, Matt Pence was like, "Man, I think he really likes this record." And I was like, he was great as he always was, but just getting the second wind excitement through Matt Pence because maybe they had a conversation in the control room while we were out there doing something. I don't know, but yeah, man. I mean, there's for all the terrible people in the music industry, the good ones, but with him, it's not just that he's a sweet person. I mean, he genuinely, genuinely loves and still gets excited by music. I mean, you see him if you're on his socials, he still goes to shows and
All the time. All the time.
something will really do it for him. And then he wants the whole world to know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not some band he's working with. It's a band he just loves. I love
Yeah.
that.
What I remember from that conversation was just how effusive. Is that the right word? Effusively, he was praising your record, but then he also couldn't stop talking about Vic Chestnut. He loved loves Vic Chestnut.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and they made that cool Silver Lake album for New West with
yeah,
Vic
yeah,
and
it's
Dyke
great.
Parks and stuff, and he got to go hang out while they were doing that. How cool would that been?
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right, so why don't I try to fire off a few of these? You're in Denton now. You live in Denton, right?
I've lived in Denton since I was 18,
And how far
so
is that from Austin?
about 3 hours if there's no
Oh
traffic.
shit! I thought it was
200
like
miles.
30 minutes.
No, it's like 200 miles.
Now I feel terrible about the night at the American Spirits. I didn't know it was
No,
200 miles
I
away.
inflicted far worse on myself back in those days than that was child's play.
Yeah, I do have some photos from that night because at some point we ended up in someone's hotel room. Do you remember that? Like, and it was like
That
Donnie
the
was
same night?
there,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's when I made the quote about your songwriting, which I'm not going to repeat here because it's a little corny. But um, so I guess first, just what have you been up to? I know you just had is it Holiday Hangout? Is that what they call it down
Yeah,
in
we do that.
Arkansas? Had a few friends at that, so love to
It's,
hear sort of what you're doing.
that's yeah, that's the first weekend of every December. I think this was the 15th official year of it. Uh 17 years if you count the two initial things that kind of turned into that. So that this time of year is always real big. I'm production manager and sound guy and stuff at Dan Silverleaf and Denton. So, from the beginning of there's, two major universities here. From the beginning of the fall semester till the end of the year, it just gets super busy and busy. And, I get more offers for shows and stuff and holiday hangout always. And so it's like trying to cram a lot of stuff into, 3 or 4 months. And then, January, it'll just be, and
Yeah,
it's all
yeah,
sitting at home,
yeah.
guitar. So,
Um, I remember when we spoke. God, maybe it was at my brother's at the show, the LC Fest thing. I thought you said you were working on Slobberbone material. It was, or is that true?
I think what I do now is when I have time and the inclination, I just come in and start making stuff up and recording. But a lot of times it's just stuff that, no one I probably would never put out and no one would really associate with me. It's just kind of for fun, but everyone, that leads to other stuff sometimes. So this year, I finally showed the band, two songs, I think.
Nice.
And we just never rehearse, like for shows. It's a maybe once in a while. So it's what I'll end up doing is just kind of recording something and and using a, a computer drummer and play a bunch of instruments, and then if I like it enough, I'll send it to them. And this year it just we just worked stuff up, either during sound checks or I think we got together once and kind of screwed around with some shit. But that's a kind of a fun way to work, but it's not. It means nothing happens very quickly at all, which nothing can really happen for us quickly anymore, anyways, because everybody's got families and stuff, and but these couple, the band were really into him really fast, and I was really into him, and we've uh we've played them at least 2 or 3 times live, and the reaction's cool, so that makes me want to do more. So we'll see. I got tons of stuff sitting on hard drives, and I'll pull stuff up sometimes and not remember recording it, and I mean, I found 5 or 6 things with I think they probably had over 100 tracks of orchestral strings and stuff. My wife's going, "What are you gonna do with this?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like, he came in. I was back at the end of the summer. I was I'd gotten some new drum machine plugins that emulate very old drum machines, like the Linn drum and the old Oberheim stuff, which that stuff was all over every '80s thing you've ever heard,
Yeah.
and they're cheap and fun. but it'll sometimes something like that will unlock something in you, and then you just start going. And I'd always kind of worked that way. When I started out playing guitar and writing, I had a really horrible old Yamaha 12-string guitar that was impossible to play. That should the furthest thing from what anyone's first guitar should ever be. And I taught myself how to play on it. It was so hard to play. I remember when I got my first electric guitar, I thought something was wrong with it because the strings were too loose and it was so easy to play. So I cranked the neck and ratcheted it down and made it really hard to play. And God, 40 years later, I've only just maybe in the last 10 years reversed that and allowed myself to play easy to play instruments and not
Yeah, yeah.
have to fight it. But the whole point of that is each time, I wrote a bunch of songs that way, and then maybe I got electric guitar, and that you could hear the same sort of things, chords and progressions, but you're hearing them differently. So that means you write more new stuff, and then you buy your first distortion pedal. Now another world's opened up to you, so you write more stuff, and it seems like cheating, but that's kind of how whatever makes it sound new to you and exciting again. That's what it is. It's just nowadays in my mid 50s, it's tons of microphones and you know crazy shit on your computer. And but that's all that to say, yeah, I tend to write a lot of stuff, but it's just not it's for me to get to another place. I
Yeah.
think the last thing I did, my wife came in and said, "This sounds like the soundtrack to Miami Vice." And I was like, "Yes." And when I listened back, it kind of did. I'm like, all right. I think I put one thing. I started a YouTube channel during COVID, and I never did anything with it. And maybe early this year, there was one of the more it's guitar based, but with more orchestral elements. And I shot some video. And so if you find my YouTube channel, it's got one video on it. Uh,
What's the chat? Is it Lumberlong?
The video or my channel is called Transient Camp. But if you
Transient
search
Cat?
if you,
T
Transient Camp,
Camp.
like a homeless, but if you search Transient Camp on YouTube, you're just going to see videos of actual transient camp. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the video, what's the song? It's an instrumental, so I don't. It's hard to remember what I named it. I think it's called "Smile Like a Beast." Um,
Do you want people to see it? You want me to link to it or
If
no?
they want, like I'm still figuring out YouTube. It worked. It sounds pretty good. It's the level's a little low.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I assume the YouTube algorithms took care of that and pumped them up and compressed it.
Nice. I will link to it.
But I just decided, maybe some of this stuff I will if I want a repository for it somewhere, I'll just shoot rudimentary videos and to go along with them and throw it up there. So
But
that's
you
the
think a new record is possible at some point?
Yeah, yeah. I don't, I'm still, if we were smart, going back the last 10 years, there's at least two or three songs that we've been playing for years that have never been recorded. The song Man of Note, people are always like, what can I get that on? And I'm like, well, you can come see us next week and we'll play it.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we had been smart, when I say we, it's me, and just real, in this day and age, just put out a song or two, and I still just think about things in terms of albums. So sometimes there's a lot going on, and it just seems overwhelming to me to, the notion of making an album. And it's because back in the day, we would tour for 2.5 years, and it's like, okay, let's go make an album. So I'd gather what I had or write a bunch of new stuff, and you go make an album in a month's time or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that way, clearly, but I'm I guess I'm still stuck in that paradigm.
Yeah, yeah. On that front, what do you think of this sort of vinyl resurgence that's going on right now?
I think it's cool. I think, and then I'm reading about people, buying CDs again, or at least you
I've
know.
been buying CDs again. I mean, I still have all my CDs, but I've been buying new ones.
Well, I mean, in terms of fidelity,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to beat. You just can't, and I think a lot of it is, the generation that came up on streaming that, they're older now and maybe some of them have more money and you sit with stuff long enough, you do see the cracks in it or the flaws or whatever. And also just the way everything else is going, the enshittification of everything. I think there's a broader sense of things like physical ownership now and it's there's music is becomes part of people's identity and stuff. So, you know, do you want your identity to just exist in ones and zeros on the cloud, or, people want, relics and
Yeah, yeah.
totems, and I love that, I love that people that maybe hadn't before, you can see that New West just sent me
Is it the box set?
that box set because they had asked me to write something for a blurb and I did, and and I still haven't took the plastic off yet because I'm just so it's like wow,
Oh, the Decoration Day box set.
yeah, the new, yeah, and man, but just it just it's heavy, it just
It's
feels
really
cool.
nice.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever do open it, there's a lot of good stuff. Incredible
I
pictures.
I
Like,
was really proud, when New West did the Slobberbone Best of years ago because I was like at first I was like really a best, but when I got it, and you could open it up and some I think some of the photos in it and all were crowdsourced, just from
yeah,
fans over the year, and then of course Will Johnson did the artwork and Patterson wrote a bunch of stuff on the inside, but man, like stuff like that really does mean something,
yeah, yeah.
It does for me, it did when I was younger for to have something like that of bands that I love, so it's I- I'm taking a long way around, but I'm really glad to see that sort of resurgence, not just in vinyl, but just in,
Physical media, yeah.
physical media. Yeah.
And I find, I mean, what's going on sort of in I don't know what you want to call it, but the indie rock space right now with MJ Lenderman and Waxahachie and everyone now is talking about this band Geese and Cameron Winter. And it seems like they're all kind of merging with the scene that you were in, right? Or are in, like Drive By Truckers, Will Johnson, Isbell. I don't know. Does it feel like there's something going, like these two different generations of music that are,
I think, even before now, like early on with that, and that was the, kind of early days of whatever, no depression and all
yeah,
that. We didn't really bristle at it or anything, and I got it. But you saw you moving forward, like Centromatic sometimes would be called whatever, all country or whatever, and that was a little surprise to me. But what I realized is that, and even more so now, as that grew, you had the basically country revivalist type bands that were trying to do because radio country is just
yeah,
pop crap, and
yeah,
so there was definitely a place for that. But sometimes I feel like it became a bit of a catch-all for stuff that was just, you know, maybe more real or whatever. Like in the late 70s when bands like Tom Petty and Dire Straits were being put in the new wave bins or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
there's it is weirder in the post-internet age where people just have their can just create their own genres, and I mean listeners, like the hyper classification of everything, but people want that. They want catch-alls, they want different levels of filters and stuff, and they want to be able to talk about things easily. So no, it doesn't surprise me. Um, I like that there's a wider consciousness for just things that maybe feel more uh, authentic. It kind of ties into what we were talking about with physical media. I think people young and old are they're tired of just constant streams, literally and figuratively, of crap.
Yeah.
At the there's always a screen yelling at you, or a notification on your fucking phone, and it's for what we were talking about earlier, music being this sort of psychic pressure release, and saving people's lives. I think that's the antidote. And the deeper we careen into, you know, algorithmic and AI hellscapes, I think the more that stuff's gonna continue to be, important on a kind of a monumental level. I think people people want to go back to the cave, and I don't mean that in a bad way. People want to go back to the farm. you
Yeah,
know
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big record collector. I've been a record collector since I was a kid. When I've got my first Springsteen record, The River. My mom bought me The River when I was like 10. She bought me American
Wow,
Beauty.
what
She
great.
bought me The River and American Beauty by the Grateful Dead at a garage sale. Um, the River was 25 bucks and The Dead was 10. I talked about it on my channel recently. Some guy posted 25 bucks for The River in the early 80s. That's a lot.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
my mom didn't have a lot of money, so or maybe it was a mid
yeah. But
80s.
look at what happened, though. Totally worth it. Like,
It worked
wow,
out. It worked out. Yeah, yeah.
that's fantastic for first records. I think I had an aunt buy me an REO Speedwagon record when I was
Oh, I
10.
definitely had an REO Speedwagon
Okay, I
record. I
like
think I
it.
bought it on my own.
I still say that You Can Tune a Piano record it's a rock gem, man.
I will put that on this afternoon.
Yeah, roll with the changes,
I'm
man.
not going to buy the vinyl. I'll probably just stream it.
Wait for record store day and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a possibility that barrel chested or everything you thought was right could ever come out on vinyl, or is it you did that one record?
When New West did the best of, one or two of them had talked to me that there was kind of a plan, that they would periodically do vinyl releases of each of the records, because there's only four.
Yeah.
But New West is I can't even tell you, New West's roster. It's a pretty big label now, so I don't imagine it being a priority or anything. I know a lot of people have asked about it. My friend Travis Hill, who owns the Whitewater Tavern in Little Rock and has a tiny label for years called Last Chance, who put out my solo record.
Yeah.
He's asked about it. He even went so far as to come to South by and meet with George Fontaine, one of the owners of New West, and which I encouraged him to do. And I think, if I remember, I think George had let him know that there was some plan for them to do it, but I don't know if
Is that
it was
recent or a long time ago?
this was about the time, either right after they had put out the best of, I think, maybe a few years after that. I don't remember, but it had to be a long time ago because I haven't gone to South by in years. But so all that say, it's a possibility. I just don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in communication with them and stuff.
yeah. And Peter left a long time ago, right? Peter Jesperson.
Yeah, he left. I didn't even we speak every once in a while online, but I didn't even know the timeline of all that until I read his book. And
Oh, yeah.
so a little
I'm
shocking.
halfway through. And I didn't plan that. It's just literally on my coffee
Yeah, yeah,
table. Um, that even his writing, he's like how I talk about music, right? Like he's a fan.
totally. He's a fan, and he's just encyclopedic.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the best things about the last Slobberbone record we recorded out in LA with Don Smith, which was what a guy, that was a treat.
Slippage, you mean?
What's that? Slippage, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that alone was we loved Don. Just he had done the Friday Night is Killing Me record,
Yep.
which was a huge record for us. He'd done a couple of the Cracker records that we loved. But all the stuff he'd worked with Petty and the Stones, and I think he mixed a song or two going back to what was the big U2 live record after Joshua Tree that had the film and everything. I mean, Don had been there, just was so it was really like old school rock and roll boot camp. And if we decided we needed a different, when we got there, I mean, Keith Richards just leaves back, would leave stuff with Don. So, all these amps and guitars. And then if we decided we'd need something else, we'd go to Petty's warehouse and just pick, the guy there every day at the clubhouse, and he's like, "What do you need?" And like, "We need a Vox amp and a Rickenbacker 12." And he pulls out, three ring binders and goes, "Okay, we've got 40 of these." And it was magical. We decided we needed pump organ one day, so Don loaded up me and Scott Dambaum in his old beat up Suburban, and we drove to Mike Campbell's house to record pump organ because Mike Campbell had three of them, and the studio in the house where they
Yeah, yeah.
started Wildflowers, I guess. So while Don was setting that stuff up, Mike took me into the guitar hallway and just started showing me guitars. It was awesome.
Oh
All that to
man.
say, though, the other thing that was awesome about that is being at such proximity to Jesperson, and this would happen every time we played in LA. We'd go and stay at his house, and it'd be late, and he would have to get up, go to work in the morning. But he just sort of knew, he would just sit down with us and in his music room and just start telling stories.
Yeah,
Um, that was for people like me and you, that's kind of the coolest thing. All the over the years to, all the replacement stories that most people know, it was cool and also kind of not cool because as bad as some of those were, then you hear the actual story and it was nine times out of ten kind of worse
yeah,
and
yeah,
kind of make you mad at your heroes, you're like,
yeah,
oh, sons of bitches, but man, what a treasure just to sit with Peter.
yeah. Did you ever see the replacements live?
I never got to see them. Uh, no, I didn't. I saw Paul
Yeah.
solo, right after the replacements are done. Of course, I've seen Tommy a bunch, but and I don't know why it was such a big thing. I have to remember that up until a certain age, I didn't have a lot of, well, I still didn't, but I didn't have a lot of. I moved out when I was 17. I didn't have a lot of money and stuff, and I was going to college and stuff like that, and living in Denton. Most of the big shows were in Dallas and stuff, the
Mhm.
cool shows. Which I mean, I saw a lot of shows and stuff, but yeah, that'll always be one of the things I don't understand how I didn't make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Brian Lane had just joined the band when 14 Songs came out, and or no, it was right before he joined the band. And he had joined the band and he didn't have a bass because he had pawned his bass to have money to go see the 14 Songs tour, which I thought was kind
That's
of funny.
great.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Just a couple shows I wanted to mention. We've talked about a few of them, but there's also I think a pretty memorable show I was at. My father was there with me. Scott Clark was there, a bunch of others. The Drive-By Truckers and Brownies with you
Oh
guys. I
yeah.
think you guys opened, and I know
They
Patterson's like talked about that show, and he like won't give details.
no,
My
they opened.
memory is Cooley was nude on stage at some point. Like,
He was pantsless.
that's right.
I remember that whole tour, it was like a East Coast thing, and they were opening for us. They were still in the old, really crappy van pulling a trailer. And that whole tour had been pretty off the rails in terms of extracurricular
Mm.
post-show activities and stuff. And I think one of them had labeled it, probably Cooley, the Get Them Pants Off tour. And so by the time we got to New York, and I remember we had been at the club for a while and we'd sound checked and stuff, and they were really late, really late. And they finally showed up, and Walter from the Silos was going to open it before them.
Yeah, when I lived in New York, he would open like half the shows
Yeah.
that I saw.
And we used to do a lot of shows with Silos, or I
Yeah,
did a
yeah,
lot of solo stuff with Walter and Drew, and they were good friends. But I remember they finally showed up, and they were running late anyways, and then they had gotten pulled over in the city, in New York City, for going the wrong way down a one-way street for like blocks or something like that, and uh the truckers back then, who knows what was in that van, had it been. But the cops just escorted them to Brownies, basically. And I was like, damn, man, that's
yeah.
pretty that's pretty cool. But so there, I feel like there was a lot of kind of stress relief going on that night at the show. And yeah, by the time, they were just I was standing at the back with Walter, and they were, blowing the roof off. And I was like, oh crap, man, we're really gonna. And then at some point, Walter had, I don't know, gone to the bathroom or something. He came back, and we're at the back, so I can't really see anything other than the heads of the trucker heads up on stage.
Yeah.
And he comes back, and he goes, I'm pretty sure one or two of them have their pants off. And we would always go to the Lakeside Lounge afterwards,
Oh, I was probably
for,
there.
for debriefing, whenever we played New York. And I remember. So apparently Cooley dropped trial, and then maybe the rest of them did, or I don't know, can't remember how many, but I'm pretty sure Patterson did because I remember talking to Patterson afterwards, and I was like, we were hugging and stuff, and I was like, yeah, pretty wild. Like, talking about them literally making it the Get Them Pants Off tour, and I told him, I was like, yeah, Walter thought it was funny. He's like, Walter who? I go, well, from the silo. He goes, oh shit. Apparently, he didn't know Walter was there because they had missed, his set, I think. So yeah, it was a fun night.
Lakeside Lounge, man. I miss that place so
Oh, me too.
much. I was in New York about a month ago. I met up with Scott and Sharish and we were just sort of jumping from bar to bar. And the Brownies is now owned by Lucinda Williams, right? It's
I heard
under,
that.
yeah. We tried to get in there, line couldn't get in. Um, and he's in, Roscoe's another one that I still message with from time to time. He
Yeah,
was
me
really
too.
good to me when I was in New York. He brought me, uh,
Another one of those just absolute sweetheart people.
exactly. I would walk into the lakeside. He'd always, not always, but most times when I walked in, I'd get a free beer. He'd be like, that guy, give him one. He let me sit in on some of the Bottle Rockets recordings, like just
Ah,
really,
so cool.
yeah, such a sweet guy. Um, so I think the last area, and then I'll jump into just the finale questions, is talked about this with a lot of my friends, many of whom I think you know, or I know you know. Just the relationship, I don't even know how to phrase this, but the relationship you have with some of your fans has always felt, to me, incredibly unique. Like it's, and when I first met you in 1999, I was like super nervous, and um, within 10 minutes, like that fear of like the approachability was just gone. And um, it was like we instantly became friends, right? And a lot of people talk about how special that is, a band that they love. When you played Lane's, you played his memorial right after he passed, and then when we did that concert for him last year, Slobberbone obviously headlined, um, and a lot of those folks were there, right? Dave Dewey and
Totally.
Mark Shepard and Lauren, folks just coming from all over the place who it's always seemed like it's like you're also like when we were talking about Peter Jesperson, like you're also one of the fans who like hangs out with us and talks about Uncle Tupelo and talks about uh the replacements and so on. So I don't really know what the question is, but
I
I
know.
just wanted to point it out. It's such a cool thing for people who love your records, that you have
Well,
embraced
for,
people so much.
for me, and I've said this before. The joke way of saying it is you don't call your band Slobberbone thinking you're going to actually go do anything. So early on, within a couple of years, we had a tiny label deal and a crappy van, and we didn't care about. And again, this was way before social media and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this stuff. It was literally, kind of blind calling places. You get a copy of whatever, Book Your Own Life, or the Maximum Rock and Roll thing with that had the numbers in the back, and that was hard but fun, and that we just wanted to do that. I thought it would last for a couple of years, and then we'd go get jobs or something. But it slowly grew, and we those first couple of years we played to mostly empty rooms, but you'd always meet one or two people, and my whole thing was beyond just being blown away that people would come see us was I learned over time that there's in the internet marketing, social media, there's this cynical notion of finding your people, and it's from that angle, it's talk, in terms of reach and algorithm and crap. But that's a real thing, like I finally found words for it years later, and I think back on all the friends I have that I'm still in touch with from all over this country and Europe and some little tiny, not big places in Europe and here that what the real deal was, it's just realizing, when you go back years later and there's a packed room and you're playing that most of these people are the people that you would be hanging out with if you were from that town
yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
You know, it is about that we're all music fans, and I'll never diminish that they came to see my band. That's awesome. But I never looked at it as we're the band on the stage and it's kind of all one thing, that like the LC Fest, that's probably the best show we played in years. And it had nothing to do with our, you know, musical prowess or preparation for it. It was just walking in and going, oh yeah, this is what it was, and apparently what it still is.
yeah.
It's friends hanging out and loving music. So, I mean, that's it for me. It's never a conscious thing like that. I need to go walk the floor and welcome
Yeah, yeah.
fans or whatever. I mean, these are friends, whether I've met you or not. If you're there, and really, I remember years ago when we toured with Cheap Trick, those guys are the biggest geeks about gear and stuff. Every night,
When you said the biggest, I was like, I have no idea what word's coming after this.
well, every night Rick is gonna, tell the audience what he's specifically the
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
what he's playing in these amps. He's gonna tell you what year and make the drum kit is and stuff. And it's not a stick. It comes, like it was really cool. Obviously they're giant Beatles fans and all this other stuff, but it's still that fun thing. It's like, wow, look at what we get to do,
yeah, yeah,
and I, to me, that's the best sort of infectious enthusiasm kind of thing. And that's what translates when we talk about, the people we meet by going to shows or playing shows or whatever. It's the same thing. It's we get to be together and enjoy the thing we love all together.
yeah. Um, I'm sure you know this, but it means a lot to people who like your band. People talk about it often, how, we consider. when we see you guys, we think of you as friends, which is just a not something I really have with many other
I mean,
bands.
that's the best thing someone could say,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me at least. And it's one of the things that keep, like, you were asking me about making another record, and part of it too is, when we made records and we'd go tour and stuff, I would love to make another record and do something special, but traveling's harder now just in general. Like, it's not hard to go somewhere and play a show or play. Like, I still enjoy doing that, but the notion of doing it continuously or whatever. But I've put that behind me. But there's a couple things I miss from when we just did it constantly all the time, and part of it is just the dexterity that comes from that, from playing every night. Where you can turn on a dime and just as a band or what have you. But the other thing is what exactly what you were just talking about, is having that every night, because as grueling as the other 22 hours of every day could be, that was the reset every night. You had 2 hours of just hanging out with friends, and oh, you get to play a show. So I still love that. I like the LC Fest was that in a nutshell, and just, that's one of those things that holiday hangout in Little Rock's kind of the same thing. Like each year I'm like, maybe I won't do it this year because it's such a busy time of year. And then I go and I'm like, why would I ever not do this?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's just it's important, and it's good for the heart, you
yeah.
know.
And usually do a Slobberbone set and a solo set there, right?
Yeah, it's a 3 night thing. So Slobberbone will usually play Saturday night, and then the last night, Sundays, is more solo acoustic stuff across the board. So
Got a lot of pictures from, it was only a couple weekends ago, right?
was it last weekend?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's the first weekend
Yeah, yeah.
of December every year. So
Um, okay, here are sort of the wrap up questions. So I don't want to take much more of your time. I really appreciate we don't get
is this
about
the
an
gotcha
hour.
question?
What's that?
Is this the gotcha
There's
question?
no gotchas. I hope they're not considered gotcha questions. First one, I talk about this a lot, and I do shorts on my channel about like records that I think more people should know about. And uh, so wanted to see if there were three records or artists off the top of your head that you wish more people knew about. Is it a corny question? I think it's all right, right?
I don't think it's a corny question. Um, there always is, I guess maybe because I'm older now too, I tend to think about it in terms of bands that are no longer with us, that I think if more people had known about them, they are. And I always, Glossary is always at the top of my list
Yeah,
for
yeah.
just a,
Are,
just a,
do they still play?
they are playing a reunion show at the end of January too, at the end of January in Nashville for some benefit. And I think the first one sold out immediately, so they added a second one, and that just with a couple other bands. But that just goes to show. I think there's a lot of people now that maybe never saw them that are like, holy cow,
Yeah,
Talk about just encapsulating. I mean, they were a perfect American band. There was all the things that always kind of turned people like me and you on. It rocked, it was rootsy, great, great songs. But there was some real kind of soul in it too, in terms of the sound and the execution, and just I uh I feel like I always sound like a broken record about them, but that it still blows me away that that band existed, and only existed in clubs.
yeah, yeah. I thought you were
Um,
going to mention another band that also starts with G. You know, what I'm thinking of
no.
Grand Champagne. Weren't
Oh,
you?
of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, those are, I mean, one of my favorite times on tour ever. It was the Drams. We did that. We called it This Is American Music Tour. So it was us and Grand Champaign
Yep, I
and
remember that.
Two Cow Garage and Glossary, all sharing vans and stage space together, and it's like a rolling review kind of thing. And I don't know in terms of, for me and what we were just talking about, the camaraderie aspect between fans and bands and stuff. That was tops. I really the holiday hangout thing grew out of that. One of those shows was in Little Rock at the Whitewater Tavern, and a year or two later, Travis, way back before he even owned the place, he would just book shows there. He would have a birthday show every year for his birthday, and he asked us to approximate that again. And we did it again the year after that. And the idea was that it would become this thing and just add new bands every year, and it just let it grow. And so that's how that came about from that tour. But
Yeah.
yeah, Grand Champaign did a reunion recently in Austin. They all live in, I think Channing's in Pittsburgh now, and one of them's back in Virginia or North Carolina. And they've done a couple over the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm always, I mean, I maybe play 4, 5 shows a year, and it's always fallen, on a weekend when I'm playing somewhere else. So yeah, they just talk about, especially if you're of our age and ilk, where the Minneapolis bands were a big deal. They were, a younger version of that in spades, just with the
Yeah, yeah,
song. Just, I realized. I maybe didn't realize it till later, but once we were in a place where we could kind of, pick bands to go out with, or ask bands to go out with us. I felt like we had a pretty good track record with, those guys and Glossary and Two Cow. And it took me getting away from it for years to realize what it wasn't just that it was selfish and that I wanted to be able to see those bands play every night. But it also meant that it was kind of vampiric in a way because, man, you had to, if you were going on after any of those bands, you better step your game up and be
yeah,
really.
yeah,
So it was kind of like an exercise for us. It made sure that you know, we didn't shit the bed every night.
yeah. I remember for many years they would open South by, wouldn't they? At Hole in the
Yeah.
Wall. Was that it seemed like every time I was going to South by, first night, like Dave Dewey would be like, "We're going to see Grand Champaign," and it was
Yeah, I think one of them worked at Hole in the Wall, but yeah, what a
yeah, yeah,
perfect
like on the
template.
Tuesday night, right? Like the
All my favorite things over the years, having done South by for 20 years until I just absolutely couldn't do it anymore. And I don't shit on it back in those times. When we did South by and people, it was all our fans from all over the world in one place. And so we looked like a bigger band than we were at
Mm.
South by, and that was to our advantage um, down the road. But my favorite stuff about it was stuff like that. You had Grand Champaign before all the throngs of crowds. That was a good way to get you in the correct mood for South by. And then, back when Alejandro used to do the last Sunday night every year at the Continental Club with different guests and stuff, that used to be really special too. So that was all, having gone, yeah, that was
Yep.
always the best stuff, or the parties, the private parties, and things like, hanging out in the basement of the Omni for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cigarettes and
The
booze.
New West parties were great. It
They
was
were
always
great.
at Club DeVille, I think, right? It was like, and I remember
Yeah.
seeing you guys multiple times. Old 97s, I think, were on the bill one year. Tim
It
Easton,
started as the Doolittle party, and then
the
in
Doolittle,
2000,
that's right.
yeah, in 2000 was when New West sort of consumed Doolittle, and it just grew. Um, One of my favorite years, they had moved. It wasn't the party; it was just the New West showcase, and it was in some courtyard downtown between some other buildings with bars on both sides. And that year, it was we always closed it out. Vic played. Um, I remember I got there and Vic was on the courtyard was kind of sunken from the street. There were steps that went down. It was a really large area. And Vic's just sitting up there, in his chair because he couldn't get down the steps. And I was like, Vic, you need somebody to help you down there. He goes, I don't want to go down yet. I'm just going to entertain the people of the streets of Austin, And at that time, it wasn't really new or, I mean, there were South by Southwest attendees around, but it was kind of the normal.
Yeah.
And so it was Vic kind of singling out people walking by, just making shit up, singing, disgusting things about the Bush twins' daughters and stuff. And it was the most hilarious thing. But that night was him and God, who else? I just remember it just being. It was such a weird place to play, and I'm pretty guilty of going, this is going to suck because I don't like the environs or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
and being proven wrong. And they just signed the Truckers. And so the Truckers played, and then we played, and then we had specifically left all their stuff up. So I think there's video of it too. I think we brought them back out for Cortez the Killer, and it's, a 12-minute version with two drum kits and five or six guitar amps, two bass amps, two
Yeah.
bass. And it just, I just remember seeing people in the audience going insane, like looking for shit to break and stuff. And there's a very young, uh, portly, curly white guy, Fro, Jason Isbell, on a $200 guitar, just killing it. And it was just one of those kind of for all my getting tired of and being done with South by years later. There were so many cool things that happened, and the label was a big part of that. Those were great shows.
Yeah. Those are some of the best shows I've ever seen. I remember we saw you guys in a hotel. It was like on the 38th floor one
That
night.
was terrible. Yeah, that was that Drams? That was Drams.
I think it was Drams. Yeah. I have
That was
photos.
the first year I had told the label and everybody that it wasn't the year the Drams record came out. It was a year or two later. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it this year. I need a break. I didn't want to do it anymore. And Keith, our bass player, had kind of done an end around and agreed to do this thing without consulting us. So yeah,
Yeah.
I almost threw Keith out of that 30-second before he went.
Yeah.
Because I mean, talk about just not a conducive. I mean, it was like a conference room.
It
It
was like a
was.
conference. I mean, you
It
guys
was a
made the
bar.
best of it. We still had a great time. But I
Now,
remember I
I
walked in the
had,
room and I was
yeah,
confused. I was like, is a fucking wedding going on here or something? Like,
yeah, I hated it. Now, I did see a cool show there years before. I saw a Crooked Fingers show,
oh, nice.
just Bachman there, and it was right after that. What was that record? The Dignity and Shame record had come
Yeah.
out, and that was an enthralling, entrancing show, with the skyline behind him. And so I remember thinking about that, and I was like, okay, well, you're here, don't be a dick.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was
I've
kind
been
of weird.
listening to his solo records lately. He's got really good solo records.
Yeah, man, he's great.
Yeah.
What a cool voice too. It's almost
Um,
almost Neil
yeah,
Diamond-ish.
yeah, totally. What was I gonna, oh, one thing before I do my last little bit. Uh, Someone that I was talking to, telling him I was doing this interview, wanted me to ask, like, what the thinking was, the difference between the Drams and Slobberbone. Like, was it because there were a lot of the same guys, right?
Three. I mean, yeah, it was just basically Brian was gone, and now there's two other guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, the end of Slarbone was it was rough. It was, we didn't really share all that. It was kind of a nebulous time. We were kind of coming apart with each other, and I think for me at least, I was like, okay, we can either, fundamentally alter the makeup of the band, um, and lose friendships, or we can just shut this down
yeah,
and remain friends, and then maybe we can revisit it one day, if that, which is what happened. Um, by the same token, I had been I was sitting on a mess of songs, and a lot of them had already started in that period. The Slobberbone was still touring, but I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we were literally starting to be at each other's throats and stuff, and that's a horrible feeling. And the things we tried to fix it didn't seem to be working. And we were also at a point where, we'd just been touring like mad for several years and doing really well, and we were beyond the point where we should have invested in ourselves in terms of maybe beginning to bring a couple crew members out with us and stuff. And I think that was a hard sell to other people in the band because we'd been doing this for so hard for many years and living on scraps, and now we were making pretty good money, and we were still essentially doing stuff ourselves. So we didn't, it was hard to sell that to some members.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, let's give up this amount every month of what we pay ourselves and pay some people to. But I know it would have saved some of my sanity. I mean, it's fun when you're young, but man, when you're doing everything every night, like driving and merch and set up and tear down and everything after several years, and it was hard for me because I couldn't ride on the road, whereas when we'd go to Europe and we have a driver and stuff, I get ideas on the road all the time, and then you're able to just turn them into something. And I couldn't do that at home anymore because it was just every day for 22 hours besides the two you're playing. It's just work, and we needed help, and we didn't do that.
Mm.
The truckers from an early time before they were even that big, all their money went back into the band. It was smart, and I always, laughed at my friends who started taking buses, and I'm like, haha, look how much money they're spending. But man, if someone else is driving you overnight, you can sit back in that lounge until you're sleepy, and you can write, you can plan, you can do whatever. So that was kind of part of it. All that to say, so by the time we did actually shut Slobberbone down, I was sitting on these songs, and I was doing things with them in the demo process that I hadn't done with Slobberbone, things I wanted to do, multi-part harmonies and stuff like that, and nothing really insane, but I still wrote the same way I always wrote. And so it basically we shut down. I think the final shows were right before South by, and they were. It was the week before South by because a lot of people that flew in from other countries and stuff for those shows were going to South by anyways. Um, and I had a solo show at South by. Um, and so I decided when I saw the showcase they put me on, it wasn't a solo showcase, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to go down and just so I basically asked Tony and Jess and two other friends to back me up for that show. And it was a little awkward. I think we had a rehearsal the day or two after the final Slobberbone show. We still had a rehearsal space in Denton. And so we were rehearsing it for that show. And I think Brian came in to pick up his bass amp and some other stuff, and here we are a day or two after shutting the band down rehearsing with
Oh man.
he
It's got a
understood,
little bit of a I'm trying to break your heart feel, right? Like
yeah,
Jay Bennett outside.
he understood, but and then I did a solo tour not long after. I went out with that year. Our management had just signed Pedro the Lion,
Yeah.
and they had a tour coming up they had a couple tours coming up. They had a big one going out, opening for Death Cab for Cutie, and then they were going to do their own after that. They had a new record coming out. And so my management, they were looking for a road manager for them for that first tour. And they just decided that, because I had basically road managed my own band for years and did all the other stuff while playing, they asked me to do it. And I did it, and it was a great experience. Um, and when that tour was done, they asked me, they had this other headlining tour coming up, and they're such great guys, and they paid me really well, and they were like, we would like you to do this again and maybe be our guy. And it was and they're like, we'll pay you more than we paid you before. And it was very tempting, but I had a moment where I was like, I'm afraid if I do this that I might not get back to the thing that I'm doing. So I said no, and I booked a solo tour kind of through the Midwest. I think I flew to Chicago or Minneapolis somewhere and rented a car and just kind of hit all the haunts. But I wrote what would be the second half of the Drams record on that solo tour because I could literally, I'm alone in a vehicle, and that's when, I write either right before I fall asleep or when I'm completely isolated, like you can do that driving mowing. I used to write mowing all the time because, the sound of the mower is isolating you,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just whatever's in your head, and it's rhythmic, and driving's the same way. But that tour, the difference that solo tour is if an idea or notion was strong enough, I just pulled over, got off the highway and pulled the guitar out and finished the song. So when I got back, I had the drams, what
Like at
would
a
be the
rest
record.
stop or something.
Totally, yeah, wherever. And it was like, it was I was go, oh yeah, this is the way it should be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I came home and did a bunch of more demos, and I think Jesperson had gotten a hold of me just to see how I was doing after the band had shut down, and wondering what I was up to, just a, kind of a sweet, courteous call. And I told him, well, I was he's like, well, I'd like to hear those. And they weren't polished demos or anything, but you could hear the essence of, there was the harmonies and there was slightly different instrumentation, a lot of layering and stuff. And I sent him to him, and he got back really fast, and he was like, we should make a record with this.
Yeah.
So that kind of how the drams really became the drams. And really, I had an idea that the drams would just be, regardless of what else I ever did, it would be kind of this thing that for anything that I would ever do that maybe wasn't exactly what people had thought before, even though when I listen to it now, to me, it sounds like me, and it would change each time, kind of like a Golden Smog thing, and maybe different people each time, and different sound, just maybe a completely different kind of record each time. I still like the idea of that. Um, but so we got excited. We made the record, and I got to make it myself, basically, just hire Matt Pence to, you know, to to help me do it. And I knew I was doing things that some fans maybe weren't gonna like, but that just made me want to do it more, not in a mean way. But because people had bitched about the fourth record, because the Everything record people loved so much, we loved it and stuff, and then we just kind of went back and made a straight rock record after that. I think some people, were mad that there wasn't any banjos or fiddles, kind of in between, and maybe didn't have the vocabulary to express that. So you would hear things like, "Oh, this is overproduced" or whatever, and it really wasn't. That record was recorded live in a studio with
Slippage, you mean?
no, yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of had this, dickish notion, and I was like, well, if you thought that was overproduced, I'm going to show you overproduced. My version of overproduced. But you won't be able to blame it on some producer
Yeah,
because I'm the
yeah.
producer. So it was a lot of fun to make in that way. But I mean, it was out of the frying pan and into the fire. So now, 3 months later, I'm back out nonstop on the road for 2 years. It's just now we're playing to you know, half or a third of the people because it's not a Slobberbone record.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still to this day one of my favorite things I've ever recorded. And what's nice now is that I have people all the time that, want to tell me how much they love that record. And some of them were the people who did not love that record when it came out. So
Yeah.
it's a good feeling.
I listened to it last night. It's a fucking incredible record.
I, it's a dense record. We probably could have shaved maybe a couple songs off, three, and made it a little bit more palatable. But in this day and age, who cares,
yeah,
if
yeah.
people are just picking it off of Spotify or whatever. But it's, I mean, from beginning to end, I forget about, I don't listen to my own stuff. And then every once in a while, it'll pop up in a feed, on YouTube or something. And I'll listen to it and I'll be surprised sometimes. There's just stuff that I don't remember doing that I love, you
Yeah.
know.
Um, it's a great, great record. And then of course your last record, we just have to, it's this one with my dog on the cover, Bennett right here. In
Yes.
I think Winnemucca, Nevada. Is that a town? Yeah.
I,
I think that's
yeah,
a song by Richmond Fontaine, like Winnemucca or something.
I think that's an album by them, maybe. I
It
could be
is an
wrong.
album, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We were driving to Yellowstone when I took this picture, and he was a puppy, so he had to get out every
sure.
hour to go for a run, and I would just find these huge parking lots in the middle of nowhere and just haul, balls to him. And then years later, I remember I got that message from you on Facebook, and you're like, "Hey, yeah, that photo." I was like, "What?" Like,
Love that.
it's God, it's one of the honors of my life that I'm on that. Well, that my dog is on the cover. It's a cool cover, and I love
I
that record.
think I remembered it because, you always post pictures of Bennett day to day just on the socials back in the day. And what a gorgeous looking dog, But I that photo for me, there's an essence of dog in that photo, and it's that trying to turn on a dime to get the ball and the
Yeah,
dust
yeah,
cloud and all that. And I have that almost every day in the backyard with my dog. And so once I decided, you know what, I think I will put a dog on the cover, like that was it. Like, I mean, I immediately thought of that photo. Originally, I have a friend who's got a photographer. Um, and she had moved to East Texas a couple of years before that time, was living on like kind of a small farm or ranch. And she had this gorgeous picture of a horse of just its head with the sunset setting, and it looked like a painting, like it looked like an amateur painting you would buy like in a thrift store, to
yeah,
put over
yeah.
your but it's just how she shot it. And in fact, so originally, I don't think I ever got around to asking her. I was like, I just love that picture so much. I was like, well, I'll call it your dog Champ, but put a picture of a horse on it or something. But then I thought, oh man, that's a little too cutesy. So, but when I thought of that, I was like, man, I hope he still has that photo.
Oh yeah. Now
It
it's
turned
framed
out
all over the
great.
place, like a
And
bunch of
then
different versions.
Skillet got
Yeah,
a hold of
yeah.
it. I did the layout and did a
Skillet
great
from
job.
he was in Whiskey Town, right?
Yeah, he was a drummer,
Yeah, yeah.
and has played with lots of people. And it took me so long to finish the solo record that I was not in a good place and stuff. And so when it came time to get the package together, I was very thankful how, like that was kind of the beginning. I was like, I need to ask Chris about that
Yeah,
photo. And
yeah. Uh,
yeah, and then it all came together. Skillet did a great job, and Travis and stuff. So that was a good feeling after a few years of
yeah,
not
yeah.
feeling at all.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much again for using it.
Thank you.
Um, all right, so I'm just gonna last to wrap up. I'm just gonna show you three records, and if you just
Okay.
give me your take on those records, like if you quick,
Okay.
a minute or 40 minutes if you want. So here's one.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that
Still,
band.
you can see who it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
another dog cover.
that's right. I
What's
met
that
that
dog's
dog.
name? Was that Elvis, or
I,
he's had a couple at least that you should try.
yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the one. He played the Mercury Lounge in New York City, and myself and a few others. I think Scott might have been there. We had to walk their dog, and I think it was this dog. Like while they were
Do you
sound
remember the
checking.
name? I
I
think one of
don't.
them was named Elvis, and one of them I can't remember.
Yeah.
That might have been the second one. Yeah, when we first started doing shows with them, they had that dog. I think our first show with them was at Shank Hall in Milwaukee. But they were a big deal. I had a friend, my friend Kevin Kirby that I grew up with who lived in Little Rock. He, many years ago, this would have probably been like 94 or something. He was in a band out of Little Rock um, that played a lot regionally and stuff before he started his own band. So he would run across stuff and send me stuff. But he sent me, this was pre-Bottle Rockets, he sent me a cassette. And on one side, it had Chicken Truck,
Yeah.
which, Henneman's band before it, and the other side had the Hilltops, which was, the pre-Blue Mountain
John
with
Sturrett was in that band, right?
and Carrie and John's sister and both of those records were great. Like I said, I had them one on each side of a 90-minute cassette, and man, I wore that out. We both did, and so when Blue Mountain came about, I was already waiting for it, and both those records, man. And Carrie still, man. Like I see Carrie every once in a while. He did Holiday Hangout a few years ago, but man, what a writer and a voice. I love him. Good guy.
And
She's
they
good.
play now. Blue Mountain, they play shows now,
They
right?
do. I see they every once in a while they
Yeah.
something in Oxford or whatever.
I would love to see them again.
Yeah, they were great. And then him starting kind of that whole rock and roll recording camp and Marat coming out of
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
These Philadelphia guys, very Philadelphia brothers American Philadelphia Oasis who beat on each other. But then they go down to this cabin in Mississippi, and pull out banjos and shit and I love it.
Yeah,
It's
and
such a
they were
great,
gonna do it. They were gonna do it again the following summer, and Serge invited me. He's like, "You can come."
ah,
I don't even remember where it was, but I had a huge poster of all them sitting on like the front stoop, like Serge,
yeah,
Dave, Carrie.
yeah, yeah,
Well, there's that one great song, "The River," that
yeah.
Dave Blanco sings. Just a great, great song. But God, it's amazing you mentioned that because nobody, even like the hardcore, nobody remembers that record. And I bring it up a lot. And I'm like, you don't remember like it was Rock and Roll Summer Camp,
Rock
right?
and roll Summer Camp,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How cool is it, man?
So good. Um, all right, two more and then we'll wrap. Uh, this because it just came out as a 50th anniversary and the cover looks
Yeah.
different.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's
50
the run.
years.
God, man. It's probably overstated by plenty of other nerds beside us, but that whole trilogy, if you want to call it that, I don't think it was meant to be, but those, good Lord, man. Like, and the fact that, even before that, I love the story of, when he basically first took on Crazy Horse, that wasn't really that a rock band. They
Yeah.
were kind of all over the map and stuff. But he'd just left CSNY again, and I forget which book I read it in, but there's a story about him running into Crosby and Crosby giving him a bunch of shit for leaving again and then you playing with all these amateurs and stuff. Like, what the fuck? Like, why would you play with these guys? And Neil's response being, because they're not you. Yeah. But now, way before I even picked up a guitar, those Crazy Horse records and the ones adjacent to that, where it's him going in studio with some guys and they don't know what they're doing until they get in there, and it's just, those were the first, more so than any punk record did for me, gave me the notion that not only can I do this, but it's not because it's easy, but because it's not about, I kind of grew up in what was then a small bedroom town. And, I knew guys who played guitar, but they were all, doing Van Halen covers or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's fine, but I was never going to be, Mr. Weedle. I just wanted to write songs. But Crazy Horse really showed me how you could make a big sound with four guys, without it being about, histrionics or, like just these big chunky notes where everyone's, 3 feet from each other. And
Yeah, yeah.
uh, that, just that, like, that record's a perfect example of just the kind of master of the slow burn, where it's just something that just builds and builds. And I love that. That's my favorite kind of rock.
Yeah. I listened to that yesterday as well. I remember Jay Bennett said that that was his favorite record of all time, Tonight's the Night, in an
I
interview.
get it.
And I was like, that's
I
perfect.
va I vacillate back and forth, which, I mean, he's got so many. So Zuma still is just otherworldly record to me.
On the
And
beat.
in the 90s, by the end of the 80s, he'd done some stuff that, getting out of Geffen and shit that people considered weird and not worth the time. I love the weird shit, you know.
Like trans and those records?
I love trans. I came to trans later. You know, to me, everybody, I remember when trans came out because I remember reading about it and, you know, people back when you only read about stuff in music magazines
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone just shitting on it, you know, and the vocoder and everything. And then fast forward, you know, a decade and when he did what was the acoustic show MTV used to have?
Oh, Unplugged. Yeah.
Unplugged. When he did
Which
that,
he
you know, when
just
he walked,
reissued this year.
oh, did they?
Yeah, they did
He
a box set.
famously walked out, you know, and just
Yeah, yeah,
left
yeah.
because it wasn't going. But he came back and, you know, that version of Transformer Man of him just acoustic guitar, you know, like, and everyone, you know, was just heralding it and going, "Oh my God, what a genius!" It's like, well, you were shitting on it, you know, when the actual record came. You know, it's a song about him and his son playing with trains and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so I love that. There was a record in the mid '80s called Life that had a song called Long Walk Home on it that actually got some radio play, at least around here back then. And that's a really slow but with big bashing choruses. That was a big deal to me. And then with the band, you know, the Broken Arrow record got a lot of play in the van. You know, we've covered Big Time for years. I love that record. I saw the subsequent tour. I think that's the tour that the Weld and Arc records, live records came out of.
Didn't you guys
Um,
cover a song off of Freedom? Was it?
I don't know if we did one off of, well, Free World's on Freedom, I think, right?
Yeah, you guys covered that, right?
Yeah, we've covered, you know,
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
can cover rocking in the free world.
Yeah, everybody covers that.
But we covered, you know, that Broken Arrow record was huge for us. Sleeps with Angels is a weird, awesome record, you know, like it's still kind of hard for me to describe, but all that to say that though, you know, at a younger age getting into, you know, I like the folky Neil and stuff, but that was a whole nother thing for me, you know, Zuma and Tonight's the Night and stuff like that. So that probably was developed a trajectory for me before I ever picked up a guitar. You know,
Hmm.
I didn't start playing guitar until I was 18 years old.
Hmm. Do you have a turntable at home? Do you listen to records?
Yeah.
Okay. I just have an idea. Just like this. Last one, then we can
Okay.
wrap.
Oh yeah.
I love this record so
Oh
much.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to mention it.
Yeah. I would name some of the songs. Here's my thing with Systematic though, and having been there when they started and you know them being best friends for years and being in the same town, I have, you know, I'll meet fellow music nerds, you know, and stuff, and they want to talk to me at Central. I can't tell you other than from maybe the first couple which songs on which record. Like Centromatic is one of those bands to me that are of all one piece. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
So
I
unless
see
I'm
that.
looking at the CD or something, like you
Yeah,
know, and part of it is, you know, having sat in with them a lot in the early days and then doing the South San Gabriel record with them and uh, you know, like I remember when I would play with them, like there's no way I'm gonna, you know, if they give me a set list, I never knew the songs by the names. I know, okay, this is, you know, starts in G minor and then we move to this or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I'll know the lyrics in my head or most of them. So and I remember at some point like wanting it to wonderfully stay that way, you know, the miasma
Yeah, yeah.
of Will Johnson, you know, universe. Like that's, oh, I love it.
Yeah, that Love You Just the Same is always my favorite record up there. I love that record so much,
It's a
but
great record.
I've been listening to this one. You'll know Only in My Double Mind.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He did a video for that. That's a painting video, right? When he's painting this.
I think so too. They did a
Uh,
video for, I think it was Rat Patrol and DJs. Is that on that record?
it's not. The other
Oh,
one's All the Talkers. You probably know that one.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know all the songs on it. I may
Solid
not know
States. It's a good one.
that that record too, though, you could tell like you know, a lot of the record coming out of the, where Matt was just taking Will's four tracks and adorning them and stuff. And then each record, production wise, I can still always tell when it's a record that Matt's worked on,
Yeah, yeah.
from that era at least. But I remember that one, like only in my double mind, that one having there was a cool kind of heft and punch to that, like, and it's doesn't come via the usual means recording wise, there's a stringiness to it that just feels big and um uh, yeah. It's funny, when we did the Welcome Convalescence record, we recorded that in my old house that I had over by TWU years ago. And Will had lived in that house prior to me. Will and Keith Coloran, who became the bass player in the Drams, had lived in that house with their respective girlfriends at the time, which was funny because it was a small, crappy house with like a tree growing through the. And when I was in the summer of '99, this girl I'd been dating for years had just broken up with me. We were about, uh, summer night, yeah. We were about to go on tour with the 97s for most of that summer, like 2 months, 2.5 months. And the landlord had just sold the house I was living in out from under me. So I literally had to find another house, and Will and Keith were moving out of that house, but not for another month or two. And so I got a hold of that landlord, and I was like, I'll just take over the lease if you'll have me. He's like, sure. So like I literally moved while I was on tour. I boxed everything up before I left, and I think my dad and my younger brother came and moved everything to my new house. So I left to go on tour at the beginning of the summer, and I came home to a completely different house, and everything magically moved. Um, but that house was cool in that it was older house. It had 10-foot ceilings, 10 or 12-foot ceilings in some of the rooms, It was drafty and stuff. And so when they were about to record Welcome Convalescence, Matt got a hold of me and he was like, "You can say no. We'd like to record this in your house." Because Will had written stuff in that house.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, yeah." And I had a little room in the back, for control room and stuff. So Matt brought some gear and we set up, and over the course of whatever it was, 10 days, it was that was a great record to make. It was,
It's a
you
great
know,
record. It's a great
yeah,
record.
and it's one of those records where, it's not everybody going, well, I can bring this to it or whatever. It's literally, the overall unspoken effort is how little can we do to this and
Yeah.
it be what the songs need to be, which means that whatever does end up on those songs can be unconventional but really special, like there's one track on Welcome Convalescence where there's a this sort of rhythmic pulse real low, this that sets the tempo for the song. My younger brother, who lived with me there briefly, had a pug named Grilla, and that was basically Grilla asleep on my lap at the mixing board that we had recorded, and Matt slowed down, and it became the rhythm and the tempo for that song. But all that to say, and going back to that record and how I can instantly recognize a lot of Matt's work is that record, the first song on that record, when you hit play, there's about a second or so of silence or a half a second or any of those songs. I already know what's about to play because that sound is the sound of that house, and that sounds flighty, but it's not. Like it's
Huh.
with hot compressed mics, it just, like when something will remind you, a smell or a sound reminds you of something unspecific out of your childhood,
Happens to
it's
me all
like
the
that.
time. Yeah.
I can, when I hear the silence before a note from that record, I can smell that house, and
It's great.
which basically smelled like leaky gas heaters, and cigarettes.
Which sounds, that's what it should probably smell like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that South San Gabriel record has New Brooklyn, right? That opener is just gorgeous. Like,
Yes.
and I saw them at South by. It's the one time I took a picture with Will. We got a beer right before they went on, And I remember they opened with New Brooklyn, and the place was just silent. Like it was,
Yeah.
it's a
I
great
think
record.
I didn't. Were you there? I think one year at South by. I think we did a show. It was me solo, maybe Anders, Parker, South and Gabriel, and maybe Glossary. Um, can't remember where it was. It had to be South by though.
I remember
But
you
yeah.
one show that I never hear people talk about. You guys played on Sixth Street one year in like the corner of a venue. Like it was like you were like I have pictures of it. I can send them to you. You
Oh,
guys were
that
like
was really,
jamming, and like there's glass. It's all glass
yeah,
windows behind you.
that was really early on. That was probably like 97 or
And I think it
something.
was a 1 a.m. set. It was
Yeah.
1 a.m. was the last set, right? 1 to 2.
I think that was like the day after the party where it
Yes.
rained
Yes.
because none of our pedals worked. Like Jess had an amp back then that he didn't use any pedals with. It was fancy. It had like channel switching and stuff, and so it had this pedal board that you just connected to the amp and you could hit all your stuff. When we got ready to play that night, there was no sound check. That thing just would not work. It was electronic because it had been sitting in 4 inches of water the day before. So I think I gave him a rat pedal and we winged it. But yeah, I remember a lot of our shit not working that night, and it was so that had to be the day after.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can send you pictures. I have pictures of both shows.
I've seen. I think I've seen. I think I was wearing some dumb trucker hat or something. Like I remember that night being.
All right. Almost 2 hours, man. I was thinking
Wow.
45 minutes. Uh,
Well, it's a pleasure to do it, man. It's good to see you.
it's good to see you. This is a lot of fun. I am just for the hell of it, I'll tell you, I'm going to Wilco's Festival or Solid Sound Festival, and I'm going to travel cross country. So I may do some stops. I may, like, last time I came out here, I was going to stop in Pennsylvania and have a beer
Is
with,
that the one they do at MoMA?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they do it in
just
most
wanted
of
to
those.
go to. I've
What's
always
that?
just wanted to go to that museum, to
The
the
place is
MoMA.
incredible. It's
Yeah,
incredible. Like, and they know how to throw a festival. Like,
I
it's
bet.
it's just really, really well done. I went in 2013, 15, and 17. I haven't been since. I just bought a ticket to go see
When
uh,
is it?
last weekend of June. They haven't announced the bill. The only thing that they've announced is that they're doing a Wilco and Billy Bragg set. So
Oh,
Mermaid
that's
Avenue
cool.
set. Yeah.
They do something in Mexico too, right? Every year.
Yeah. I mean, that's in January, and the lineup is unreal. It's
Really?
Wilco, MJ Lenderman, Waxahachie, Snowcaps, the Jayhawks, Dinosaur Jr., Dr.
Whoa,
Dog, Lucinda. No, I think Lucinda was last year. It's just a ridiculous lineup. And there's
that's
bands I'm
great.
forgetting. But Tweety knows how to put on a festival. They do it really well. But my point is, I think I'm going to drive all around the country, and I'd love to swing by and grab a beer, grab dinner with you when I do. Um,
Well,
say,
I'm not on the way to Massachusetts, but fuck yeah, man. Let me know.
I mean, I think Scott's going to go, Sharish is going to go. Um, Bunch of people have reached out to me. I think it's not sold out yet.
I'll look into it.
All right.
In June, you said?
Last weekend of June. And they should be announcing the full lineup any day. I remember it being earlier prior years, but they haven't announced it yet. It could have been announced while we were on this call. Um, the only thing they've shared is they're doing Mermaid Avenue. I think it's the first time in 26 years or something that they're
Where
performing.
would I fly into? Like, how close to Boston is
You have to
that?
fly to Albany.
Albany.
At least coming from the West Coast, I would fly into Albany and it's a 2 hour drive.
See, but Albany's not as I looked in last year. My wife and I are mini golf freaks, so
Really?
when we rarely get to travel together, like we'll go to, we're only 6 hours from Branson, so we can do that on a weekend or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But the big one for me was in Gatlinburg because it has my favorite mini golf course in the world called Hillbilly Golf, which is basically on a side of a mountain, under big trees, and you ride this tram up and then play mini golf down the mountain.
Nice.
Been there since I was a kid. It was
Where
one
is
of
it?
Gatlinburg, Tennessee, right next to Pigeon Forge,
Hmm.
all that. Super touristy, but the cheesier the better. But the one last year we ended up not doing it. I wanted to go to Lake George, New York, because they have a really old one called Around the World, and most of my favorite ones tend to be in old tourist towns,
Yeah, yeah.
that haven't knocked them down yet and stuff. It's not a sport for us. It's just, I love old American kitsch, and
Yeah,
a
me
lot of
too.
fun
I've
way.
never.
So I'd looked into, I was like, well, we'd have to fly to Albany to drive up to Lake George, and it was, it's, man, airlines are so fucked. It was like, why is it $1,000 more for me to go to Albany than Boston or somewhere?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The three times I went, I flew from SFO to Albany and then rented a car. Um, and if I mean festivals, that's especially as I get older, it's those are tough, but they just do it the right way. Like, and the worry that you're going to miss a band, they have three different stages and they just time everything perfectly. I think the only set that I missed was this guy, which I was going to ask you about, Terry Allen. You know Terry Allen?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He
Uh,
wrote he wrote Amarillo Highway, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I can't remember if that was the year I was there or not. I just know that he performed one year, and apparently David Byrne showed up to watch him perform. There's a long story about that I won't get into now, but it's pretty funny.
Is there plenty
David
of
Byrne's
plenty
like
of places to stay around there?
no, it's hard. You
Is
gotta.
it?
I'm staying like 40 minutes outside of the venue, so I gotta have a beer or two during the day, and then I gotta stop so I could
Yeah.
because it's really hard to find local places. John Sturrett has a bed and breakfast up there called
No shit.
Tourists. Yeah,
Hmm.
he opened up a bed and breakfast, but it's always booked within 5 seconds once they announce the festival. All right, this is great. I really appreciate it.
Man, I
Um,
love you.
yeah, I love you too, man. When I'm done with, I don't think there's anything we need to edit. I've never edited a post before. I just throw them up there, and um, I'm sure people will like it. I hope people like it.
Well, text me a link to your YouTube channel, and
I will.
I'll send you a link to mine with my one video.
Please do.
Also,
How about, 'cause I gotta
I'll
put that
send
on.
you a couple demos of the new ones if you want to hear them.
I would love to hear them.
The first
Um,
one started out, had gotten some new delay pedal, and I was just screwing around, and it kind of vaguely reminded me of something. I was like, "What's that remind me of?" And it was just a simple non-progression on guitar. And I go, "Oh, it kind of reminds me of the Cars." So I was off for like 2 days. I wrote a song. I was like, "I'm gonna make this sound as much like the Cars as possible," and I did so much to where I sent it to Tony, and he got wigged out. He's like, "This is just an exercise, right?" Like you're just, I was like, no, Tony, it's all Cars all the
exercise.
time now. Dress according. I sent it to Patterson and he freaked out. He's like, God damn, I love it. Now we've been playing it and it doesn't sound like the Cars when we play it, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's a fun demo, so I'll send it to you.
Tony, I've never met Patterson, but man, when he talks about music, oh my God, talk
He's
about a
another one.
fan.
Yeah.
Like, and
I
how cool
mean,
was that to see them on? Did you see Isbell
I
playing
did.
with them?
I was working, so I got home. I forgot about, and I watched it about 3:30 in the morning, like two or three whiskeys in, and I had to keep stopping it before it was even a minute in and rewinding it and because it was hitting me in a way that I couldn't articulate to myself and then I finally figured out what it is. I've seen friends bands on TV all the time and it's always great, but this was doing something to me and I realize it's because you don't see your friends' bands go on TV and play something from 20 years ago from the trenches, when we were all together in these little clubs and stuff, because everyone's just, if you're on TV, you're promoting your new record,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
which they were technically, but to hear that song from those early days, a song that I watched them play every night together with those people together, like I got broken up, man.
I got
Like I,
chills right now just thinking about it.
yeah, man. And it took me a while to figure out what it was that was doing it, and that's what it was.
And I figured,
I texted them all and told them that, and they were all very gracious about it.
yeah,
It was true.
it was incredible. Like the look on Patterson's face and Cooley, they were both, you were like, these guys are just in this moment, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I
and I
mean,
thought it was very cool or I was surprised that they didn't play an Isbell song. Like I figured they were going to do Outfit um,
well,
and I thought it was
yeah,
really cool that he was with them and just played,
and
lead
I think
guitar.
he's he's fine. He doesn't need the extra promotion. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we're good.
yeah. He's doing all right.
That's part of what made it cool. But like we played on TV. As cool as it is to do it and or to see your friends on, it's weird to play on TV, man. You have to be able to, it's you see your friends play on TV and it's always good. But to transcend that a little bit and do it like you would do it if you're in a fucking club or whatever, which
Yeah.
they did at night, that's what it is. I've only There was one performance, I think it was on Letterman once, that stood out to me as like, whoa, just above and beyond. And it was Vic when he did that record where he had like the WPA Ball Club
Yep.
backing him, all those Nashville guys.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I remember the song, I can't remember the name of it. And I don't know, somebody who was not initiated might have decided he was drunk, but he wasn't. It was, they had the horns behind him and stuff, and it was just Vic unleashed on TV, and it was till this day one of them, like, you know. So and then the one the other night with them, like you can tell when it's just like, well,
Yep. Yep.
here you go,
Yeah.
like,
And of course, everyone's like, are they now going to tour? I mean, I doubt it, right? I imagine that was just a one-off, but
just enjoy the moment,
yeah, enjoy. Yeah, we always want more, right? Always.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, man, this is great. Thank you so
Okay, bud.
much.
All right.
Whatever you send me, can you include uh, a mailing address for you? I got
Sure.
something I want to send you.
Okay. Well,
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so
you
much.
too, brother. See
All
ya.
right. See ya.